I mean, Ben Wallace...
Another kind of defender.
We've got lots to talk to you about, Mr Wallace, but I think you were listening to that conversation, and, of course, there is a real sense of excitement and anticipation. We had the Commonwealth Games launch last night, but, importantly, just there talking about the Lionesses on Sunday. How are you feeling about their chances?
Well, good, I think. I mean, the momentum's with them, and just like in politics, I think in sport, the big MO, as they call it in America, that whoever's got the momentum, I think, has a really cracking chance. And, I remember watching the women's soccer, I think, during the Olympics, and I just thought how brilliant it was to watch them. I always felt they sort of played without ego, if you know what I mean. And so it was a much more interesting and entertaining game. And funnily enough, it's one of those sports you feel... I would watch it and think that's a really uplifting and great event. And I think it's brilliant that it's going from strength to strength. I think actually women's participation in a range of sports are getting stronger. My two boys play rugby, and when my daughter was younger, she played some rugby as well. And I think, it's really good to see, and especially success. Success breeds success. And I hope they carry on right to the very top.
And you do indeed believe that Liz Truss, is she a woman who plays without ego, perhaps, as you say the Lionesses do? You are now at this stage saying that Liz Truss is your woman for the top job. Of course, you were in the running for the top job. Why not Rishi Sunak?
Look, I've been with them both in the cabinet for 2 years. I've seen them sort of up close. I've done a number of international trips with Liz, both at NATO and indeed sort of bilaterals in Australia and with the French and others. So I've seen her firsthand. I've sat with them all in cabinet, but also at the National Security Council regularly with Liz Truss. So I understand what they're both about. They are both supremely talented individuals. But I've also seen Liz has been very consistent in her support for what defence needs and helping me deliver, making us safer, and not only in the response to Ukraine, but also against the threats we face, which are still wide and variable and sadly growing. And she's just been consistent with that. And, what do I think about who can win the next election? I think she's better placed. I'm a Lancashire MP. I live up in the north. And I just felt that at the moment, what the public want in this cycle is a sense not of perfection, but a sense of authenticity.
Okay.
And with Liz, definitely what you see is what you get.
We're talking about the football on Sunday. There'll be a tactical game plan from both coaches trying to engineer a victory for their players. The world of politics, we know, can be very tactical as well. Is one of the reasons you've left it till now to suggest that you're going to be supporting Liz Truss, is because tactically you're thinking, look, I can see that she's leading in the polls with Tory party voters. I want to make sure that I'm on the right side of this when that vote finally comes in.
No, that's not my way. I mean, look, I watched them all in action. I wanted to see what they had to say, not just their pledges, how they were performing in the hustings. And, when I rang Liz yesterday about supporting her, I didn't even talk about my future. It's not, ultimately, I take the view of what I think is best for the country and best for my party's chances at the next election. And, I've been in this game long enough. It's definitely a different game from football. But in the end, the political bus comes down the hill and flattens you at some stage. So, you should never think, you just be lucky for what you've got now. I was lucky to be an MP, I've always thought. So, from my point of view, I like them both, but I think Liz ultimately had the edge. And from a defence point of view, I've been on your programme many years, both as security minister and as defence secretary. I've in one sense, sadly, had to see the threats to this country, often very secret. These things don't disappear on their own. And I know people are struggling with the cost of living, and I know that people will be asking, why should defence get more money when we need to spend money on healthcare and everything else? But ultimately, threats don't go away on their own. Some of this cost of living crisis is driven because of insecurity globally, not just in Ukraine. And we have a contribution.
Yeah, can we pick up on that point? Because what I think is disappointing about the Tory hustings is that whilst the government is looking towards who might be the next leader of the Tory party, of course, today we're talking, and we have spoken on the programme about this, about Centrica, British Gas. Their profits have surged fivefold, £1.3 billion, thanks to high energy prices, what you described there as being partly because of what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. You've got Shell doubling its earnings in a single year to $11.5 billion. Neither of these candidates are really going to the heart of this issue, where in a few months' time, bills will be rising to over £3,000 and could hit £4,000 by the new year. Neither of them have got a plan to help the most vulnerable?
Well, I would disagree. Both of them at the time, and I was the same in Cabinet, supported the current windfall tax. So only recently we've increased tax specifically on those companies to get more money to fund some of the measures that we're taking. So today the detail's going to be set out about how all of us will get up to £400 off our energy bills. The government will publish today how you get it. If you're on direct debit, it'll be taken off that way.
Come January, though, the bill's going to be £500 for a month. That £400, as needed as it is in many areas, it's not going to touch the sides, is it?
Every single one of these measures is the magic wand. I'm just saying, we are going to, Liz Truss is going to not impose the national insurance costs. So for those people earning and paying national insurance, that will alleviate it. And I absolutely take what you were saying about those in the lowest income bracket who may not be paying that anyhow, more measures around that. And there was some specific aid earlier for that. But you're right, the scale of these energy crises is a real problem, and the government will be open to looking at all sorts of measures. Some of the measures we can do something about, and Liz Truss has said, for example, she will suspend, not cancel, but suspend the green levy that goes on people's energy bills for a period of time, and I think that is difficult. You'll have lots of people on your programme saying climate change is pressing and urgent, but there'll also be many people watching your programme whose daily, monthly bill is urgent, and I think that is right. But, is
it right that these oil companies are able to have enormous, eye-watering profits off the back of vulnerable people who simply can't pay their bills?
Well, I think two things here is, one is what they do with their profits matters. So, one of the reasons I supported the windfall tax, I think when it was discussed, was another major oil company. I read its report, and they were buying back their own shares, which is usually what a company does when it can't think what it does with its money. And I took a view that, if these companies are going to invest in alternative energy supplies for this country, then that's a good thing, because then we don't get up in a place like we are now where we're dependent on gas prices in a way that makes it very difficult. So we've definitely got a balance. But I want those companies to take those profits, invest in renewable energies, and really invest in the UK. I looked at one company that was doing lots of investing, but that was all in the United States. So I didn't have any guilt about thinking we should really windfall tax that company. So I think that is important. We have to get that balance right. They are huge operations, these companies, but fundamentally, if they're making excess profits, we need to make sure we do tax that. We did that on a windfall tax. And as long as that can be used to alleviate those people struggling, I think that's a good way of doing it. If it's used to spend it on something else, I think that would be a harder sell.
Can I just ask, Mr. Wallace, just before we let you go, because I know that you have to leave, do you think that the leadership contest has been too personal? Lots of accusations that actually all this blue-on-blue infighting is not serving the Tory party and its reputation any favours at all, and it's just helping Labour cement their position as the incumbent party of choice.
I think what I'd say is, I became an MP in 2005. It's all becoming too personal. It's becoming too personal in Labour, too personal in Lib Dems, and too personal in the Conservative Party. I don't like that. I'm deeply uncomfortable about it. It will put people off. And I think it's something that we really need to address. Social media is horrendous. You two on the telly, you will get awful social media as well, totally unwarranted. And it really is disturbing. It's a disturbing factor that I worry for my children about the society they're going to be in. It's not just this campaign, it's just all too personal.
OK, Ben Wallace, thank you so much for joining us on the programme this morning.
Thank you.